that have been feeling all sad and lonely in my drawer for many years finally get framed and hung on the wall, and it's just really wonderful. So I appreciate this opportunity that Claire provided for me to show all these paintings. I'd like to show you my two sisters, Mary Chris and Beverly, who come from Hingham and Wellesley respectively, and came all the way over here to see my show. So they've been very supportive of me. And I'd also like to say that, I feel very lucky to be living in Lincoln, because I never really took any art lessons after I was a child, until I came here and was lucky enough to find the decor of a museum. So off and on, over the years, I've been taking advantage of the decor of the classes. And then I found, when I retired, the wonderful open studio, of which many of you are members, where you go every Thursday and paint from 9:30 to 2:30, and it's a nice long time, and all your fellow artists come around and give you suggestions and give you tips and share their paints, and it's just a wonderful place to go. Without that, I would not have most of these paintings. So thank you so much for coming.
You're over?
No, show's still here. Does anybody have any questions?
Come on in, sit down.
I didn't think so, so just feel free to mill around and talk to each other and have a good time. Thank you.
How long you been doing it? How long?
I've been painting off and on just as an amateur since I was about 11 or so. I'll just tell you one story. I always doodle when I was in school. I would always be drawing on the edges of my paper. I'd be making hands, I'd be making feet, faces, houses, trees, birds, squiggly hues and all that stuff. When I was at work, I would do the same thing when I was in meetings, just to keep me from phasing out. So one time I was doing that, and I was at a big conference table, and the president was talking, and somebody leaned over to me and they said, "It's really considered bad form to doodle while your president is talking." But I refused to be repressed, and I carried on. Any other questions? So I've been painting off and on. When the kids were in high school, I took about classes for 4 or 5 years, and then I went back to work for 20 years. And as soon as I retired, I started taking classes again. It's been terrific.
Are you an engineer? You're an engineer?
I'm an engineer, yes.
Wow.
What kind?
All-purpose engineer. I majored in physics, and I worked in gyroscopes and robots.
Great.
Which is why my paintings are very precise. I'm a very left-brained artist who insists on controlling the paint in spite of what it wants to do.
Looks like the right half is working pretty good, too.
The left half's in control, though.
That's why they almost look like pictures.
Yeah, most of these are from photos. A few of these are on-site. This one of the meadow and this one of the little boathouse are painted on site, and that one over there. But most of them are from photos, because I really have trouble dealing with the changing light when you're outside. Yeah. And I've been trying to learn this. I still haven't figured out how you do wet-on-wet paintings when you're outside, because sometimes it takes like 45 minutes to dry, and by then all the shadows have moved. So anyway, I still have an awful lot to learn, but a lot of them, most of them are from photos.
I wanted to ask about the very nice sunset that you have in the other room.
Yes.
Was that from a photograph?
Yes, that was from a photograph. Many of these settings are from around town here, or at the occasional trip, but a number of them are from my sister Chris's house, who was fortunate enough to live on the water, overlooking the Boston skyline. And so whenever I'm at her house, I'm always looking out the windows. And we were sitting there yakking one day when I was visiting, and there was this wonderful sunset going on through the window, and I ran over and opened the blinds and got out my camera. And that one, I should tell you a story about that one, because I painted it in the open studio class, and I brought it in one day and I showed it to everybody, and it had a big red sun. And everybody said, "Oh, that big red sun just doesn't work." So okay, so I took it home and I pasted different color circles over the sun, and eventually decided they were right. And I scrubbed out the sun. So what you see today is largely because of my friends at Open Studio telling me to get rid of that nice red sun and make it a different color.
Even though that red sun was there.
Yeah. It was, but somehow it just didn't look quite right.
You know what? Do another one called Artistic License.
Well, I don't always follow their advice, as they know, but now and then they're right. Any other questions?
I'm curious. I work for Sperry Gyro,
Yes.
and you mentioned gyro. How
Yes.
did gyro get into art?
Well, engineering is greatly unappreciated in the larger world as an artistic endeavor. It's a very, very creative thing where you have problems to solve, and you have to solve them in the most elegant and efficient way possible. And the same thing is true of paintings. You have a problem to solve, and you're trying to find, in my case, the easiest possible way to solve that problem. So it's all very much the same, engineering and art, except the only real big difference is that engineers like symmetry. I had to break that. Almost any engineering design you'll see will be symmetrical, and it really makes them troubled and anxious if the things they're looking at or have designed are not symmetrical.
I was speaking to my twin sister about our art group, and she's a painter and she works with painters, and I was explaining that each one comes from a different background, and she said how interesting, it's much more interesting than just working with people who majored in painting, because we each bring something else to our painting. And not only are the people more interesting, but their paintings are.
There are all kinds of different people in our group, yeah. Okay, well, I think that's enough programming.
All right.
Have some fun.
Just to remind you though, through this door or that door in the living room, there are other paintings, and there's nice coffee and goodies out on the table.
Thank you.
I would have one question about interiors. You have one still life, I believe, and one interior. Have you worked with other interiors, or?
I haven't. At that point, when I finished that one, I thought, well, I think I'll do a whole bunch of interiors, but then I never got to it.
Have to do that.
Usually I just sort of thumb through the photos I have, and I say, what do I feel like painting? You know, I like to paint something I'm in the mood to paint.
And they're all watercolors, right?
They're all watercolors, yes. I figured I should learn to master one medium before I try something else.